if you didn't, level up. And the notion being that I didn't feel like playing first level characters in D&D. I mean, I didn't want to have, I want to see the magic. I don't want to fucking wait for the magic through 10 adventures. And so, then there was nothing, I wasn't shooting any sacred cows. I mean, what's wrong with that? But to him, it jarred him. It's like, but that's not real fourth level. And
I don't have like a 10,000 XP.
Whatever. The point is that the games of this kind, despite their real power in design, because Darkurthe mechanically and in terms of advancement and in terms of concepts of all kinds is so vastly superior to any form of Dungeons and Dragons that's ever been written or published. Vastly superior as a game. It just is. Not all the fantasy heartbreakers are like that, but this one definitely is. That it didn't have to hang on to as many of the assumptions as it did. Right? It didn't have to hang on to that first level notion of a starting character just not being very good. That for some reason, to be competent, you had to chin yourself up out of what is frankly an unrealistic competence, an unsatisfying competence given the cool character you have. So if we kind of get our minds out of that, then the compensating mechanisms like the kind you're talking about don't have to come in. And don't get me wrong, I kind of liked having all those characters around. It gave us relationships, right? It gave us things, interactions.
Right, yeah.
I noticed that you made Hade sort of a bad reputation, nobody liked him character. And when I tried to follow up on that a few sessions later, because you had a number of NPCs, like the other hirelings, like avoided him and, stuff like that. And I kind of wanted to follow up on it. At one point, I had the chance, after he did something pretty good, I had the chance for my character to talk to him a little bit and even asked him, how come, what's the problem? What are they, what's the word on the street about you that makes makes you a bad egg? And you kind of dodged it. Did you ever actually come up with something, or were you kind of spitballing that along the way? I mean, did you have a backstory at all or at least a vague one for Hade?
It was vague, and it came from.
Fine. Yeah.
Honestly, it was the characteristics, and I can't remember what.
Yeah, there's something about. I figured it was one of the characteristics or traits that was like bad reputation or something, which makes perfectly good sense.
I think it was actually what it was. Honestly, I cannot remember, but and I think I might have it written down somewhere. But yeah, and it was just purely just RP, and I kind of was wanting to, as we were going, I thought, I just kind of kept visualizing him as being, the guy that you get, familiar with and get comfortable with, and then he does something real dirty. Like,
yeah, I was kind of wondering whether that was going to happen sooner or later. That was thinking you gave off a very good whiff of that when you role played him in the beginning, and that's why Hanu was really like leaning on him about, don't you steal any, I'll let you steal a couple of coins so that you won't steal more, that kind of thing.
That was really what kind of inspired me to think, well, he'll be a good boy now, and right. Then
right. So I was kind of interested in that. And then there are a couple of other interesting points. Did the way we both interacted with the non-player characters, both of us took steps to have our characters address them as people and have specific reactions to what happened with them. Right. So what have you encountered that before in your GMing? To have the players do that and like talk to the non-player characters and just casually develop individual trajectories of emotions with them?
Not at all. Not at all. And with my little bit of experience, NPCs were never any kind of an organic thing like that. They were always more of a, almost like in a computer game where they were just a fixed, part of a structure, like you go to the counter and the salesperson, the merchant will, interact with them then, but it was never in a situation like this,
Right.
by any means. I mean, usually there would be more people in the party also that would, kind of. Yeah, I guess it took away the need for that a little bit. There was always a lot going on with more players, things to look out for, things to kind of manage. But in this situation, it was definitely a lot more. I mean, it was great because it kept to me. It gave me a lot to work with too, as far as the development of the characters go. In fact, they were expendable. I mean, they were all expendable. So, the fact that you developed any relationship with them at all is like, I don't want them to die,
Right.
I want them to hang around, I don't want them to, I don't want them to get killed by the bog beast or whatever it happens to be. I wanted to, even Mordak, which was just an old D&D character from years ago that I'd created, and and even his magic was it had to be more ad-libbed during play. Just his abilities and everything were very. Didn't create him Darkurthe as a character, so I'm just really glad that we didn't get into a situation where he needed to actually start. I mean, I did want to maybe have him rescue you if there was a particularly bad thing happen, but that never came up either. But
interesting. Let me ask you one other question about your NPCs. Was Throxon different from any of the others? I mean, did Throxon stand out in your mind in any way?
Yeah, he did, and because I think more than anything, he was the one that I wanted to be. I think he was going to be the one that was going to be a survivor. That was going to he was less expendable, I'll say, and also I used him. I was going to continue using him as sort of like a conduit to Mordak, and that there was definitely a relationship that he had with Mordak that was, that kind of almost like a brother or something. So his brother, and he was just kind of keeping that secret or something. Just some ideas. But I definitely did want to. I did want to keep him around.
Yeah,
as far as character,
my impression was that Throxon was kind of like your proxy player character. That he was you in the game.
Yeah, I would say that he was a player character. Yeah. Absolutely, he was mine.
Well, I'm not. It's not a criticism. It's my observation of what I was observing. What I was observing, what I thought I saw. So that I just wanted to see if that was kind of where you were coming from. Robbie, did you have other questions or thoughts?
Well, yeah, I just on the non-player characters. I guess just one special thing with Pixie is she had that alignment thing that she was always interested in. So for her, like an NPC, I think she was initially thinking of them as like, oh, maybe this is somebody that I could bring over to the
fact that it got misapplied to Throxon is particularly satisfying, actually.
Yeah.
But in that regard,
yeah,
absolutely. So yes, the fact that our characters were very faith-based and non-trivially so, right, in the culture, kind of makes a lot of sense. There's interesting things to talk about with this. What about play as a whole? leads you to want to provide safety nets for the player characters. So, granted that if the creatures are all truly deadly and our characters are under par for facing them, that's not very much fun in play. I get that part. But you talked about the non-player characters as expendable, with the implication that they're not player characters who are not expendable. You talked about how one of the NPCs you could distinguish in your mind as expendable versus non-expendable, which is Throxan. And then you also talked about Mordak basically being a non-game mechanic constrained source of rescue, right? Or and so it just seems as though that's a whole lot of padding to keep our tender player characters nice and safe. And so I was just thinking about your approach toward play that you might not have examined, whereby it's pretty much a given in your mind by hook or by crook that you're not going to kill us off.
Well, yeah, and the main reason is because being that I'm not very experienced, I didn't really have a good gauge as far as how much to throw at you, for one, and also I felt like, and this all goes back again to the situation where I felt like your characters were not, didn't have the tools to interact with the.
Right. But let's say we did. Let's say we did. And yet the game is capable of killing us. Right? A critical or two from a skeleton, right, is not anything
right.
that our characters probably could have stood up against. So let's say that we weren't talking about your sense of, okay, these guys are really vulnerable. Let's say we weren't talking about that. And also, I mean, what if our characters did get ourselves, dragged down to hell by, the Lich King dude or something like that, right? Or had the misfortune through failed skill rolls to have alerted the gang of goat, who would then seize us and overwhelm us with their 20 people. So let's say that happened. Let's just go ahead and say, never mind never mind how tough we are. Let's talk in terms of, there's 20 people and this is their territory and their pet snake. Well, there was their pet snake. And let's say that some game mechanic, through our efforts and the way things bounced, put us right in their laps and at their mercy. Are you saying that it would make most sense to you to have Mordak suddenly appear in a blaze of fire?
Well, that's very good. Honestly, that's not particularly the way that I would want to run a game by any means. Mm-hmm. Given my experience level, though, I can't say in all honesty that would have been what happened.
It seemed implied by what you said a few minutes ago, but the